right. Welcome everybody to the February 2025 Aspen updates in an instant. Got lots and lots of good things this time. And as always, want to start by thanking all of our contributors. We've had lots of contributors this time, as always. Some new faces, some old faces. So good to see. Thanks everybody for doing that. And thanks to the people that are doing testing and documentation and sponsoring releases or sponsoring developments. So it makes all the difference in the world to Aspen and growing Aspen. So with that, I will jump up to the top here. And we've got a lot of stuff. Obviously, I won't go over everything. But we'll start with Lita. So let me share my emulator. So a lot of this work was done by Kirsten and myself and sponsored by Minuteman and Gmilks. So first I want to talk about the Gmilk stuff. I won't demo that today. But last time we talked about doing sublocations for pickup areas so that if you have different areas within a library, so like hold lockers and pickup shelf, you can have patrons say where within the library they want to do that, or if you have a children's desk that also has a hold shelf. That functionality we showed last time for Discovery, that is now in Lita, works very much the same way. And that is for Polaris libraries only. And then as additional ILSs add support for sublocations, that will be available there. Then Minuteman did an RFP a while back. I think people probably saw that, that had a bunch of features and enhancements. So bug fixes and enhancements. So go through a few of those real quick. So I'm just going to do a quick search for dog. The first one is respecting the sort order of facets. So previously everything was sorted alphabetically. Now it is doing a sort based off however you have your facet settings set in Discovery. So it will match there. So for example, here by format, we have that sorted according to number of results. So we can see book has 729, audio 137, large print, etc. If we go back to the filters and look at author, so this is sorted alphabetically. So we're able to do those alphabetically instead. So nice quality of life thing there, make things more consistent between Aspen and Lita. Also did some grouped work updates. So I'm going to go back and do a search just for Fodors. Going to Fodors Ireland. So we added this more info button down here. This can be disabled within the Aspen Lita settings. So if you don't want the more info button, you don't have to have it. But if we click in, it's going to open essentially a browser window within the app, which brings us to the details within Aspen. So everything matches exactly what you see within just the different sections there. So you can see our description and more like this and subjects. The second phase of this is integrating that natively into Lita so that you don't kind of leave the app. One of the rabbit holes that you can go down, and one of the reasons that we made it so that you can turn it off, is all of these links are still clickable. So if I wanted to, I can then search all Ireland guidebooks and that kind of thing. So good functionality for patrons. If you'd rather wait for the full implemented version that's entirely within Lita, that should be coming in the next couple of releases. So kind of up to you which way you want to do that. Next, we have the ability. So when we were placing a hold that required an item level hold, and this is largely for Sierra libraries, When you placed a hold, we weren't showing all of the information. So here we'll go ahead and place a hold. The next step in this is saying, hey, you got to pick an item. Um, and before it was only showing part of the information, it now matches what Discovery does exactly. So here we're going to pick our volume and we can see all of the different information. So what's available, the call number, the location, all of that information. So I'll go ahead and place a hold on the 2025 edition that is available. So there, that is successful. We'll go to those holds. So with Sierra, there is a quirk where the holds don't always show up immediately. That is something we're addressing in a future release as well. And that's partly based off how Sierra does holds. There is a little bit of a hold queue that it goes through and it can take a couple of minutes. In this case, it showed up right away. We added a little bit of additional information. So continuing to make Lita do the same kind of things as Discovery, we added the call number here so that we can see which edition we were placing a hold on. And then also updated so that previously, if you froze a hold that couldn't be, if you tried to freeze a hold that couldn't be frozen, it would give you an error message saying it succeeded, even though it didn't. And also with Sierra and any ILS that doesn't support automatic reactivation dates, it was still showing a calendar. So it is now no longer going to show that calendar, and it's going to give us a correct message that it is indeed frozen. So here we're going to freeze this, and it's going to say, hey, we couldn't freeze that because there's other copies available. For something like Dogs Do a Lot that can be frozen, if we thaw that, we should be able to freeze that again, although it looks like one of the that checked out, so maybe I can't freeze it again. That was position 2 of 2. Let's try freezing that. So just some good quality of life things. Yeah, so we could freeze that one. Good quality of life things for Sierra libraries. And others with like that call number is generic and will show everywhere. So back to Discovery. Lots of good updates here as well. So account within the admin section for both account profiles as well as indexing profiles, we're doing some things just to make it a little easier to set up. This isn't going to affect a lot of people, but people that support companies, it's really nice. So just making it so that when you select, hey, this is a Koha system, instead of just having the note that says, hey, this field only applies to Koha libraries, it's actually just going to remove it if it doesn't apply to the ILS that you've selected. So nice functionality there, doing a little bit more to make it easier to navigate as we start getting more and more things. We can get directly to a format section. We've got our item record mapping. So this is gonna, if an ILS doesn't support, for example, number of holds in a year or year-to-date checkouts, it's not going to show you that field. So make it a little easier to support things and make sure that you're not like, do I need to fill this out or don't I? So we will hopefully be bringing that forward to, yeah, so this is for all, it's the account profiles and indexing profiles regardless of who you're logged in as. So we will hopefully be doing this for like libraries and locations as well, because those also have a bunch of things where it's highly dependent on what ILS you are. So we'll try to make it a little easier for everybody. The other thing that we're doing is previously when you were editing a field, things that were required were not shown other than when you were adding new. So if you were adding new, it would show, hey, this field is required, but not once you edit it. And you could delete required fields. So not sure how we never saw that before, but it is now enforcing that. Wanted to just call out Carl X. I don't know if James is here or Brian, but Nashville did some work to show lost items without a checked out page or within the checkouts page for Carl X. So nice functionality there. Evergreen, based off the last Evergreen users meeting, we made several updates. So just specifically related to like reading history. So there are some timeouts loading reading history. If titles didn't exist within Evergreen anymore, but they were in the reading history, it was canceled. It was preventing loading and importing lists. We were just setting titles so you could sort the title. So some good things from the last Evergreen meeting. All right, the next thing I wanted to show was local administrators. So the idea here is that currently we have tied all of our permissions to ILS users. Sometimes there are good reasons to not do that. And we've heard a number of cases in the past, just like, hey, everybody has access to everybody's password essentially, or can reset anybody's password in the ILS. So we wanted the ability to create local administrators. So local administrators are local to your Aspen instance. So we have always had two local admin users. There's the Aspen admin, which is kind of the super user for Aspen that support companies will use. If you're installed locally, you'd be using that for kind of the super admin. It is just a way to say like, hey, if the ILS is down, we need a way to get into Aspen. Then we can, and there's a New York Times user that is just used primarily to give a name to the lists that come out of the New York Times APIs. We can now add custom ones. So we've got a few ones here that I've been adding, and I'm going to add another one. So I really, really want my dog to be able to administer Aspen. I don't know that that's a good idea. I'm pretty sure she won't do anything wrong other than giving us treats, right? So we're going to give Kanai permission, and we're going to use my email address. You can then control what locations they can administer. So because the local admin doesn't have a home library, we're using that functionality to administer additional locations to say what they can do and whatnot. So here we're going to give her, she's going to administer my Pine library, and she is going to be my library admin. So she's now the branch manager. And we'll save those changes. So there she is. So now we're going to go to Pine, and we're going to log in. And do that. Okay, so now we do have the ability to attach two-factor authentication to this because we're giving people admin privileges. So in the two-factor authentication settings, you can now say, hey, this is attached to which account profiles. So we're going to say, there that is. I'm going to get, it is going to authenticate via email. I am hopefully going to get this email quickly. All right. 887-128. Okay, so she's got to have her phone with her when she's administering. And then we go in, we can see our admin. We've got the ability to manage our library systems. We can only manage the Pine library rather than all the others. So it behaves as a normal administrator. Obviously, you can't check things in or out. You can't place holds. Those things don't work, but you can administer what you need to do. So should be really cool. She is a good girl sometimes. Within that, there is also security settings. So here's where we can, if you could turn off two-factor authentication, you have the ability to say it's an optional thing. We can reset our PIN or password. There is also the ability, so if when I was logging in here, I didn't know, there is a forgotten PIN link that will email the password or email a link to reset the password. Um, so good functionality there all around. Thank you to Metropolitan Libraries for sponsoring that. Next, I want to talk about San Luis Obispo sponsored some more updates to material requests. So here we have the ability, so I'm just going to go down and show you the new options. So um, this one we need to sort by sort as well. There's our material requests. Okay. So last time we talked about changing so that we could do either a rolling year or a calendar year. So there's two options here. You can't see the pop-up, but it's calendar or rolling. We added the ability this time to set a start date. So we can say, hey, instead of setting those to roll over January 1st, maybe we want it to be based off of our fiscal year. So if our fiscal year starts instead on July 1st, we can do that. Before I save that though, I'm going to just show you what it looks like here. So here's my material requests for my user. So currently I have one of 60 material requests that I've used. If I do switch this to July, we then have the ability to, so I will now have used more because more of the year has passed because we're looking back to last July. So there we can say, hey, we've used now 11 of 60. So that's cool. The other thing that we've done is in patron types. So if you have staff or special users that you don't want to limit, there's now the ability to say, hey, materials request is active. So the options here are for the allow users to create materials requests. The options are no, yes, but limited to library systems, or yes, but unlimited. So here I can say, hey, my staff, what I want them to do is if they find a book that is damaged, that needs to be replaced, I want them to put in a materials request, not do some other procedure. But in order to do that, they need to do more than 10 a year. So we'll save those changes. And then here we can see that that message just goes away because I can now do however many I want because this user is a staff user. The other thing added related to materials request is the ability to see if a title is already in the catalog. So this is similar to generating the hold candidates that we did several months ago, 4, 5, 6 months ago. There is now the ability to say, check the requests for existing titles in the catalog. So what that will do here is if I go through and I'm just going to submit from here. So here, if I want to say, I want the adventures of Tom Sawyer by Mark Twain. Down at the bottom, when I go to submit it, it's going to say, hey, we have that title. And we're still going to let people submit it because we do want to say, hey, if it's a case of something's damaged, or maybe you want a different edition, maybe here I'm saying like, I really want the whatever 1981 cursive version or something, then we can do that. It will also depend on the format. So if what I say is, no, what I really want is the playaway, well, we don't actually own the playaway, so it's going to let me submit that. So I'm going to submit, we're going to submit the book. And we're going to submit the playaway. So now when we go to manage, um, so hopefully that's also going to cut down on the number of requests we get for titles that are already in the catalog. When we go and manage our requests, so now we can see this is a list of all of the requests, whether it exists in the catalog or not. We also have, so here's Adventures of Tom Sawyer. That is, yes, it does exist. If we click on that, it will take us to the title in the catalog. So there we see that. So we can compare versions or editions and that kind of thing. And then the Adventures of Tom Sawyer, that's the playaway, does not exist. If we had just ordered it and we think it should be showing, we can also check it manually here. And that'll just show like yes or no, it worked or not. So we have the ability to do that. In this case, it still doesn't exist. So cool stuff on that. All right. From the catalogers group, one of the changes we made was showing the 520C in addition to the 520A. So here, it's providing the source of the 520 and also changed within the notes. I'm not currently showing notes, but in the notes, we're just separating the different notes with a space rather than a comma. So good stuff there. Last thing I want to show, and then I'll turn it over to whoever's next, is Aspen events. So we've been talking about this for a while. We started talking about this at AspenCon for sure, and we'd been talking about it before then, but being able to create events within Aspen. So this is phase one. It is not ready for use by everybody. It will be fully available in 2403. It can be enabled by Aspen admin in 2402, but we've got some additional work that is happening on it before it's fully ready for general use, additional features and that kind of thing. So here, if we do a search for knitting, we can see down here in the Explore More, we've got our In Stitches Knitting Club. We can click in and see all of our events. So this is just a lot of events. If we do a blank search, we can see all of the different events. We can jump to the calendar. So here we've got a bunch of different events that are starting. These are super fun to add, and we'll show that in just a second. So here we've got different recurrences. So Get the Wiggles Out is happening every Thursday. The In Stitches Knitting Club is every other week. Friends of the Library is the book club is every month. We can get additional information about that. So here, if it doesn't have an image uploaded, it will show the default. Knitting Club does have that. So it's going to give us all of the information that we have filled out. We can add it to our events and that kind of thing. Let's look at how we set these up because this is cool. So we have different event fields. So the idea here is that you can add any field, kind of like you can do on custom forms. So if we wanted to, we could say, so right now I've got fields set up for audience, event type, language, if it's library sponsored or not, what the subject is. Let's add another one to say, is it a featured event? And we can give it select this is featured. So we can give whatever instructions we want to whoever's ordering them or to whoever's entering them. We can choose their type. So we've got a bunch of different types. These are similar to what are on the custom form. So text fields, text areas, checkboxes, select lists, email addresses, URLs. And then you can also give them facet names. So we can map these to ages and categories and custom fields. So I'm not going to bother mapping this one yet. So we'll save those changes. So there's our featured event. We then have field sets. So the idea is that we want this to be really configurable and work well for very large consortia with that have, or even large libraries that have different rules in terms of like, well, I want to make sure that for story time, I'm always prompting for these things. And for a community event, I'm prompting for other things. And we've got different permissions for who can do what. Right now, I just have one field set, but so we'll add featured event to that field set. Then we can create different event types. So again, we have the ability then to say, um, if it's something that we're going to reuse a lot, we can create something specific. So like Get the Wiggles Out is a program that I'm going to run at every single branch. And it changes a lot, but I've got a lot of the same information um, that I want to make sure is uniform every time. So here's my event type for Get the Wiggles Out. So maybe I don't want whoever's creating those events to customize the titles or the description. Like really all they can do when they create the event is, um, so there's our wiggles. They can't customize the cover. All they can really do is say, here's the day it is. But otherwise, this is a standard event that just happens at different places. It can get scheduled, but not changed. Whereas if those were customizable, then whoever's entering them could say, oh, well, it's no longer toddlers and preschoolers. Maybe it can get customized for whatever. So if I wanted my Pine Branch to say, bring your grown up to the Pine Branch, then I could do that. So we'll save all that. So there we've got our wiggles. When we go to create an event, so we can manage our events. So here we can say, so I'm just going to create a new event. I'm going to use in this case, so first we're picking the location. So we're saying this is going to go to the Pine Library. It is going to be a generic event, which I just have being completely customizable. We then have the ability to say, hey, this is our sensory STEM club. We're going to put our description in here. Give it a image. So we're going to say this is good for teens. It is a club. It's not featured. It's conducted in English. We're going to call it science and technology. And then on the next step, we're going to go through and say when we want this to be held. So we're going to say this is Fridays. So I'm just going to pick. So Fridays, so starting tomorrow, it's at 9:30 a.m. It's going to last for an hour. And then it's going to repeat, let's say, every month on the second Friday. We're going to give it, so here we can give it a repeat frequency. So we're repeating every month. We can say what day, just different options so that you can schedule stuff. We'll give it an end date, or we can say specific number of events. So if we know that this goes for, if we've got 10 sessions of these, then we can do that. It automatically shows us what dates those are. And then it'll go through and index those and show them on the calendar. We won't wait for that to finish, but really cool stuff. Catherine's been doing a lot of the work on this. It's great. It's so much fun to play with. So yeah, I will stop and turn it over to who's next, unless there's any questions about it.
Yeah, any questions on anything there?
All right, thanks.
Andrew, if you want to go ahead and Up next, Andrew from Bywater.
Lost my unmute button. Hello, everybody. Let me grab the right window and share my screen. I have a few things to talk about, not show so much. Some of them aren't very showable, and one of them I just didn't get a demo together. But yeah, actually, let me share just the window. It'll be a little easier to read. Boop. Okay. First, I just want to wave at. We've got some new names under Bywater Solutions in our contributors this month, and I'm excited to welcome them. Nick's not new. Nick's been around forever. We like Nick, but he's not exciting. But we've got Leo and Amani, who are both new at Bywater and new to Aspen, new to Aspen releases, and I'm happy to see them here. I also want to wave at our friends in PTFS Europe and Theke Solutions. The PTFS folks have been struggling with the schedule of this meeting, given that they're in England and their partner libraries are in continental Europe. They've got some folks lined up for next month, and I think are probably going to be coming to some other meetings to talk about maybe adjusting things a little earlier in the day. But they send their kind regards. Yeah, so Leo and Amani have been jumping in and doing some stuff here in Aspen. And like I said, they're not all super demonstratable, but Imani moved the renew all and renew checkouts buttons to the top of the checkout list if you have more than 5 things checked out. This is not the most exciting change. I like it because it's very user focused. Let's not scroll down to the bottom of a long list of checkouts. But I'm mostly waving at it because having done this, Amani is now working on cleaning up the Koha renewal code in Aspen generally and getting it to use the Koha APIs properly. And it'll make things tidy. And that makes me happy. It'll make Aspen play nicer with Koha. It's a good project to take under. Leo, meanwhile, has been hitting some big like usage stuff, structural things that like absolutely are not demonstratable, but we were having a lot of server usage ballooning out of background processes recording stuff. And this is me having a hard time characterizing it all because it gets over my head. But if you scan for his initials in those release notes, you'll see he's on several things about stopping spamming of tables and reducing usage loads, which is all exciting. Yeah. Overall, I'm glad to have them both getting started, doing some more work. Yun Yun from Bywater has been in previous Aspen releases and doesn't have any in this go round, but has been working with third-party integrations in a very exciting way that continues to sound hard. So hooray.